I first met my friend Sean just by commenting on his YouTube channel, and then we connected a year ago to ride an event in Bloomington, Indiana. Then last week I just took a 5-hour trip out to ride at his place, film some content, and then ride the Moda event that he was checking on Saturday. The rain that morning didn't cause any puddles, and it actually knocked the dust down and made the dirt nice and tacky. All right, Jared, the champ, doing a little maintenance, right? Got to get that air filter all cleaned out. Yeah, that's rough. Champ rider, not necessarily champ maintenance. Like
That's
that.
the truth.
So it was fun to connect and warm up with Jared and his dad, Brian Harrell. Now, a Moda event is different from the typical TI events that I'm used to. These guys are really pushing the boundaries of tight turns. In addition to that, they seem to have logs that are right in the way when you're trying to set up for the next obstacle. So you can see in this expert line, there's a log right before the next log that you'd want to get onto. Anyway, here I go into section 1. Thankfully, I was able to get to the event early enough to ride the entire loop to examine some of the sections. I wasn't sure exactly what line I was going to ride, what class, because Moda events are slightly different than Trials Inc. events, or TI, the club that I'm normally a part of. So I wound up riding Sportsman's line, which was good. It was challenging, some tight turns, but not necessarily anything that was so hard it made me scared or afraid that I wouldn't be able to make it. In fact, as I walked the sections, I thought to myself, man, I should be able to clean every one of these. The challenge is putting that together in an event. Old ski resort, and you can see the lodge there on the right. Now that's kind of unique for Indiana, which isn't known for having big hills, but apparently this is the place to ride. So this is section 2, little angled log to start, and then that sand, that dirt that you can see there actually gets kind of deep, especially when it's dry, which thankfully we did have some rain. It's almost like riding in powder. If you guys have ever done any snow skiing, this type of dirt sand actually can get thick. It can almost swallow up your front tire, so you definitely want to lean back a little bit more as you're working through it. Just like you would if you were snow skiing, lean back in the powder so your ski tips don't go down, in this case your front tire. Now you can see right there, I got way too far to the right, and so I decided to take a little longer path around this tree in order to get fully set up to not cross my own tire line. And I'm telling the checker, I can see where that line is. I just got to stay to the left right there. And I wound up leaning a little bit too far left and started to float, turn around, and was afraid I was gonna crash into that tree. So wound up taking a dab, but oh well. So you may have noticed that nice big rock slab that I just went around there, and I did have a chance afterwards to go over there and play a little bit. There was some Spaniards that were riding, as well as B-Rad, a fellow YouTuber, which was really cool to meet. So this is kind of the top of the mountain, the view from above, so to speak. They took us all the way up and all the way back down before it was on to section 3. But before we get there, I just want to show some footage of the single track riding, the loop, which is so fun in between the sections. The dirt was perfect that day. It was kind of like chocolate cake. Just to go ripping around the turns and that travel gear was a lot of fun. And initially I bought a dirt bike when COVID hit as something to do outside. And then I bought the Trials bike to get better at enduro riding, and then quickly realized, man, I think I love Trials more than the big bike. So this is my 4th and final loop out of 10 sections, and I had some different type of goals in this event. So one of the main goals was just to have fun. I wanted to come away after the event with a big smile on my face, and so that was intentionally one of the goals that I had. I didn't say I wanted to win or do anything spectacular. I just flat out wanted to have some fun. And it depends on your reasons for riding Trials and what goals you have, and I'm going to make a whole video about the mental side of Trials, but for today, that was the primary goal. Then the second goal, I wanted to do an entire loop hopping intentionally at least once in each section. You know, I can hop in the backyard. You guys have probably seen videos of me working on both rear wheel hops as well as front wheel hops. But when you put the tape up, when there's pressure on, it just changes things. And so I intentionally said for an entire loop, I don't care what my score is. I want to see how I can do hopping. And so it was kind of interesting because I didn't score but 1 point due to loss of balance with hops. That loop was actually better than the previous loop. Okay, back to the section at hand. This is number 4, and you can see down to the right, it was actually a pretty steep bank, and thankfully it never lost it over that edge. So here we go down, up and over this downward log, which unfortunately right there, I think I want to put in a foot down, just lost the balance. Now in just a moment, I'm gonna go up a steep incline, and this type of little bursts hill is what I enjoy. This is very similar to the riding that I do in the woods near my house, as well as with some friends. So lots of logs and little hillsides. This is the type of terrain you should expect at Mt Wawasee in New Paris, Indiana. They also at Moda are gonna put a lot of tight turns. Man, they are gonna force you to turn. And if you can't turn well, it's gonna get exposed. So either turning or hopping is definitely something that helps, along with the ability to go over logs, especially at intervals that make it challenging. So in a moment here, you're gonna see this sportsman line had this decent sized log, but then it's these next two. Now they weren't terribly spaced, but when you go up to the next class, the advanced and the expert lines, those are the ones where they're putting logs off camber, different angles, and at perfect bike lengths away, so you can't separate out the obstacles. You really have to plan ahead and have a lot of good bike control. Section 6 was pretty cool. It actually had the most atmosphere out of all of them. That nice little tent setup, they had the music playing. Corey was even pretty helpful to give me some pointers on how to plan for that rear wheel hop and really locate where you want your front tire to be so it doesn't wash out. Now coming back down this hill, you can see a lot of loose soil and dirt, and that was exposing those roots, so the back end was just kind of sliding, but I was glad to make it through without taking a dab. So you can see right here, the spacing of these logs is definitely interesting, especially when you're trying to keep momentum and go uphill. Section 7 is where my friend Sean was checking, so you're finally getting some third-person video content. And this downhill turn that we're about to make going up to the left, ugh, this was challenging. Such a temptation to dip that inside shoulder and the head and then apply the gas and wound up spinning out on the roots that were down there. Just had to be really patient on that one. So this is section 8, and part of this one was designed by my friend Sean, and it just makes me think classic Moda. Lots of gates, lots of tight turns, and lots of logs spaced out to make it extra challenging. So this is the sportsman line that I'm riding now, just a tight squeeze between that first gate, and then it's going to be a sharp left-hand turn, which was much easier when using the hops, but I didn't want to use them unless I had to. Now this next portion is a parallel log. I had to use a little bit of a floater technique to get over that, although didn't want to overshoot it. So if you're not from the area and are considering going to a MOTA event, hopefully this video can add value in making your decision on which line to ride. This is the sportsman line, angled logs, separated out, challenging distances, some tight turns, but nothing that was an air log or over 2 feet high. The stuff that was higher you could definitely bash plate and just rock over, which is actually a video I'm going to be making. Make sure to subscribe so you can catch that video as Sean and I produce something together. So this section 9 was one of the most challenging to me. I don't think I made it through clean at all. Had this tight turn up here, and then as we go down further, this again, classic Moda, tight turns, skinny little trees to get around. I don't even know that there was enough room for me to really hop through here, but it's right here coming back to the right, some roots to get around, and then back to the left again. You can see those roots in this downhill turn, and right there, that's where people lose their patience. Now, my tire is actually on the wrong side of this log, so I had to hop to one side and then back in order to get through the gate, and just couldn't make it, put the foot down. This next log coming up is probably one of the biggest that they had, but they had a nice little cheater log right in front of it, so you didn't have to do anything major technical, just kind of hit the wheelie, right up and over it. All right, now coming down here, we had this little bowl that you had to kind of go in and then make a tight right-hand turn. I wound up taking a dab on this one just because I didn't want to take out their stake here. I was like, I wasn't sure I was going to make it. Probably could have forced my way through it, but was afraid I'd hit that marker, knock it down, and take a 5 just for that. All right, section 10 was probably my favorite section, although I never cleaned it. We had this tight little turn up over this one, and I wanted to get down there, make a hop, and then go up that next section, but I already put my foot down, so I thought maybe I can just cut the corner and go straight up from there, which did work out, although it put me in a little bit of a precarious position with that front wheel super high and a wheelie right there. And by the time I landed, I didn't have room to get around to the left and then cut back to the right, because look at this kind of cliff edge hillside turn. I mean, goodness, if you stick your front wheel off that thing going forward or to the left, you're just going to lose it and tumble. So again, put a foot down just to make sure I didn't lose it, and wound up having to put the other foot down as well. One of the most encouraging things that happened that day was all the people that I met who said, I subscribe to your channel. You know, your videos are helping me ride better. And man, to think that these videos are actually helping people get better at a sport that they love, that just did a lot for me. So for all of you guys that are watching, the viewers that I have, thanks for making this channel what it is. Thanks for your support and for commenting. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.